Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, a podcast where we deconstruct difficult decision making to try to figure out what keeps us stuck, and more importantly, how do we get unstuck? I'm your host, Karen Covey, a former divorce lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator turned coach, author, and entrepreneur. With me today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ann Cerney, and Ann is a licensed clinical counselor in both Illinois and California. She specializes in couples therapy for people who are interested in changing their dynamics today and need it to stick. For couples who are ready for deep and lasting change, Ann's Couples Intensives are a personalized experience for one couple at a time, and they're in Sausalito and Palm Desert, California. They're ideal for couples who are in crisis or considering separation, are healing from betrayal or emotional distance, want to rebuild trust and intimacy, or need focused time but can't commit to weekly therapy. One dedicated weekend can deliver the clarity and progress of months of therapy because the relationship gets the curated time and attention it needs and deserves. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Karen. Glad to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here, and I want to dive into your couples intensives because I love this idea. But before we do that, can you tell the listeners about how you got from where you started as just a regular therapist to where you are now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in my own life, I went through, I've been married, I have three children, and unfortunately, my marriage was not able to last. And we did seek couples therapy a couple of times, but we also were expats for a number of years in Singapore. And I think that was sort of the crowning blow to, an already really hard relationship. And since then, I have just really been drawn to divorce and couples and wanting to help people. The longer I'm working with couples, the more I realize that it is possible for many people who are on the brink of ending their relationship to fix it and to make it a good, sustainable relationship. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell, is really going through the hardship of divorce and raising three kids who are all fine. But it was tough, and it's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Mhm.
And you and I have known each other for years and years because we met while you were still in Illinois and practicing in Illinois. And I know how dedicated you are and were and are to helping people who are either going through a divorce or on the brink of divorce. And I love this idea of an intensive weekend. But if you can, tell me a little bit about that weekend and how is that different from just going to weekly therapy?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think a lot of people think of it that way. But a couples intensive is, first of all, a lot of thought goes into it for the couple before they get there. There's quite a bit of pre-work that they're working on, and I ask them to spend at least an hour on every questionnaire. And that gets them thinking. And then when I receive the information, it gives me the opportunity to sort of curate 2 days for them that are more tailored to their specific needs. And so there are some sections of the weekend that are more delving into the past and looking at what they've shared in their questionnaires and pulling that together with them and sort of giving them a picture of helping them see a picture of where they are today and how they got here,
Hmm.
and looking for strengths. And so that's a couple of hours in the very first day, is sort of pulling all that together and giving my clinical view of their relationship based on their own individual development and things like that. And then we do there's some psychoeducation about how the brain works and how it interferes with effective communication. And this is, really based in science. And I have a lot of good information for people and help them. When I do this in my therapy sessions with my regular clients, there's just a lot of aha moments about, oh, that's what's going on for me. I mean, it's really cutting edge. And so they get to see from a scientific viewpoint why they're getting in these, circular conversations and escalating with each other. So there's that piece of it. And then, there's a couple of experiential exercises that we do together that are really revealing and somewhat diagnostic about what stage of development the couple is in, because I'm trained in the developmental model of couples therapy. Ellen Bader and Pete Pearson from Menlo Park developed it, and Lori Weisman sort of developed this model of the intensive and used that information and that clinical research to put into it. So we do the experiential exercises, and then we get into really the heart of the work, which is called the initiator inquirer, or eye to eye. And it's just really a transformational process that I use to teach people how to listen and speak and put aside some of their own reactions to each other, but noticing them. So it's a lot, and it's I break it down for people. So I know it sounds like a lot, but it's quite fascinating and makes a huge change.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fascinating. There's so many questions that I have now. You mentioned developmental model. When I think of, all right, I certainly don't have your background in therapy. So you're going to have to educate me here. But when I think of developmental stages, I think of a child, like from birth to however old until adulthood, right? I
Mhm.
don't think of that in terms of couples. So can you explain what that is and how does that work?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. We as humans develop, as you know, in a very um, reliable, predictable way, unless there is something that interferes with that. And couples also are sort of built the same way. They are driven to evolve. So the beginning of a relationship starts out with us being very symbiotic and enmeshed, if you will, not necessarily really looking at the two individuals or striking out our own autonomy. In the beginning, we're looking for merging. That's what love feels like. When you fall in love, you're like, oh, I want to be one with you, all of that. And your differences, oh, who cares? I'm okay with that. There's a lot of accommodation and avoiding of looking at conflict and things like that in the beginning, and that lasts for about up to 2 years. And
Okay.
then naturally, the two individuals within that couple start to emerge. And that's when the opportunity exists for the next stage of development, which is differentiation. And that's when we learn how to be really transparent with each other about who we are, and self define what it is we want and need, what we think. And we also start seeing our other partner as a separate being, a separate individual from us. And they can have their own thoughts and wants and needs separate from us, and it doesn't define us. And this is where most couples get stuck.
Why?
Um, well, I think that what happens for people is that that wish for being together symbiotically is very strong. And there's a fear of abandonment, of loss. To move into differentiation is risky. It's like the toddler separating from the mom and having to come back, right? Rapprochement. That's the next stage, is practicing. So when the partners start understanding and moving through differentiation, the next stage is practicing, much like rapprochement in human development. And we go out and we say, here's who I am and here's what I want to do, and I'm going to separate a little bit from my partner, but still be attached, and as a couple, but we're now two individuals doing our own thing and also coming together in a very healthy way. But a lot of people get stuck in the differentiation stage because it is threatening.
And then is that the last stage, or are there more stages after that?
There are more stages, but clinically, I don't see people in any of those later stages, to be honest, because those are really advanced development stages for couples, and they often are not needing a clinician to be involved with them, you know.
So would I trust me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like if you get past this, the stage that you talked about, the differentiation, if you get as a couple past that stage into some of the more intricate or advanced developmental stages, you're good.
You have the ability now to negotiate and
Okay.
to move conflict forward instead of hiding from it or embroiled in it. The symbiotic couples are typically either conflict avoidant, they keep everything down, or they're high conflict and they're not able to move the conflict forward into negotiation, successful resolution.
Okay, so that would be the next stage is when you can negotiate, and by then it sounds like you have the skills that you need to keep the relationship on solid ground.
Yeah, skills are important, and I think everybody focuses on skills. What has to happen before skills can really develop is capacity has to be developed. And by capacity, I mean developmental capacities, the capacity to actually hear someone, listen to their thoughts, feelings, wishes, and not internalize them and make that about yourself. The capacity to be able to see your partner as a separate individual and know that their thoughts and feelings don't define you. Those are really advanced capacities for human interaction.
Okay, so now you've got me intrigued because I always thought about capacity kind of as a fixed thing, right? Like your capacity might get bigger or smaller if you're under stress, for example. Like when you're stressed, your capacity might get a little smaller. But I thought fundamentally you've got what you got.
Yeah, that's really a great point that you're making. And I think a lot of people, myself included, used to think of capacity. Well, they're at capacity. That's all they
Right.
can do. What really we're learning is that people can develop capacities. The brain continues to evolve. There are certain people who get stuck in pervasive patterns of interacting with people. We know those people and those things usually relate to developmental problems or that happen early in life, trauma. But even those people, when want to work towards something in terms of growth, they can develop greater capacity for these things that result in having a much more fulfilling and satisfying, rich relationship with their partner.
That is so interesting, right?
I find
That's
it
really
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, this is totally new territory for me because like I said, I always thought that the capacity that you were born with was kind of like what you've got is what you've got. And maybe not born with, but that by the time you're an adult, you've
Sure.
developed your capacity or your limitations, right? Whatever they are. And what I hear you saying is that the brain is constantly developing and that you can increase your capacity. You can deal with those limitations and take some of them down, which once you increase your capacity, you're going to have better relationships, right?
Yes, you got it. You got it. Yeah.
I love this. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned another word too about, it triggers people's abandonment issues.
Mhm.
That in me reminds me of attachment theory, right? So, how does attachment theory play into all of this couples counseling that you do?
Well, it's definitely something that we talk about, and it's going to be apparent to me in their responses to the questionnaires that I send out, which is a relationship history and also a personal history. So I'm reading these things and sort of getting a feel right away for where they might fall on the spectrum of attachment and whether it's secure or anxious or avoidantly anxious. And so what's interesting is that most people do not seem to find someone with the same attachment style as as them. I think, we're looking to heal in subconscious ways, wounds that happened to us in childhood. And so we may choose someone who's like our father, who may have been very distant and unavailable emotionally. And then that starts to surface in our relationship with that partner. And if we don't have the capacity to stay in our own skin and be our self-define, know who we are, allow our partner to be who they are without it affecting us and our self-esteem, it'll be another additional wound. It'll be a, it'll add to the trauma.
And I know trauma is something that so many people deal with. I don't know that there's a human being on the planet that makes it to old age without having some sort of trauma,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I know that it's something that takes a long time for many people anyway, a long time to heal, a long time in therapy, right? So if you've got an intensive weekend, um, how much can you really accomplish in one weekend?
Yeah. And that's a great question. And it really depends on the developmental stage of each of those people who come in as part of the couple. And the developmental stage that they're at in their couple relationship is also going to depend on where each person is in their own developmental stage. So, I've seen people who are really not even able to identify their own feelings, their own thoughts, that they're very disconnected and saying things that they think their partner wants to hear. They're not necessarily, connected. And
Yeah.
so that's somebody who's going to take a little bit longer because there's first to get differentiated from your partner, you have to know what's inside of yourself. And so it's a different way to start with somebody. And I will say that when somebody's a little more advanced and they have already got some good idea of what they're thinking and feeling and who they are, that it makes my work a little bit easier in terms of the couple differentiating. But either way, I think we plant the seeds, and we do the work, um, and the outcome is worth like months of therapy for either wherever you are in that spectrum. You're going to have a whole different idea of your relationship and why things are breaking down. And it really, I think, gives people some relief to know these things.
100%. And what I love about this is that, to go back to something you said earlier, that you think that so many couples who are on the brink have they could fix the relationship. They could mend the marriage. Now, I'm sure it's not always possible, but the fact that you have more hope than most people that I've talked to, and so many of my clients and the people that I'm working with, look, if they could fix their marriage, they'd love to do that because going through a divorce, as you know, it sucks.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And so nobody would voluntarily want to do that if they could fix their marriage. So, how can a couple know if their marriage is fixable?
Yeah, I think that, well, you've heard of discernment counseling,
Yes.
probably, yes, and I'm certified in that as well. I think knowing whether it is fixable to me isn't the question. The question is really, do you want it to be fixable? How much do you want this to work? How open are you to looking at your part in what's breaking down here? Are you able and willing to entertain that maybe there's some things that need to change? And my experience, and I've been doing this for about 20 years, my experience is the people that don't want to look at themselves at all and believe that is all their partner, that marriage is not going to work. They're not going to fix anything. Because when you come into therapy, you're not coming in to fix your spouse,
Ah,
coming
okay.
in to understand how you can do a better job with your spouse at repairing your marriage.
So, when a couple comes to you, do both people in the couple have to be willing to look at themselves? I mean, if one person is open to it and the other person is not, what's the prognosis for that kind of couple?
It's a really a nuanced question. It's a great question. I can't say a blanket statement that, okay, I would not work with those people.
Uh-huh.
However, I do, as I said, I've been doing this a while. I have a good idea of somebody who's really checked out and is just looking to sort of put the lid on it and say, okay, we tried one last time. And I never want to be in the position of putting the other partner, the one who really wants to work on it, in a position of putting everything out there while their partner is really just, checking the box. So commitment is really important to me, especially for the intensive. Even if they're on the brink, if they're desperately wishing that they weren't, that's
Yeah.
okay.
I love that. I really love that because I was just working with a client who they're on the brink of divorce and they want very different things. And they went back to the marriage counseling for the one last time. But for her, it was like her spouse was just checking the box.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to have a good marriage. I just don't want a divorce. I don't want to change the way things are. I like them the way things are. And the other spouse is saying, "No, the way things are suck. That's why we're here. That's why we're on the edge of divorce. Either we're going to make it better or we're going to get a divorce." And the spouse was saying, "Well, no, I just want to be the way I am."
hmm I would have some real questions for that partner and wonder like what is going on underneath all that complacency. Is it fear? Is it there it usually is anxiety underlying what looks like really um, bad behavior, I want to
Hmm.
say, non-collaborative behavior in marriages. Before, maybe when I was earlier in my career, I would have judged that and said, well, that person really isn't serious, but I think now at this point, I'm more like, what is going on for that person? He or she is blocking growth.
Yeah.
They're
Yes,
blocking
100%.
growth. And that is, we need to continue growing. That's the way we're built.
But it's interesting you say that because a lot of people think that when they get to a certain age, and everybody's got their own idea of what that age is, like, okay, I'm done. I'm fully cooked. I don't grow anymore. Like, this is just me. And what I hear you saying is not so much.
No, we know now that the brain is continuing to evolve. We have the capacity to continue growing. We have a lot of potential. And a relationship that isn't growing is what? Static.
Dying.
It's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one person usually that says, I can't do this anymore. This feels suffocating, or it feels, fill in the blank. I'm not happy. I think exploring with the other person, what is keeping them stuck? What is their fear about moving forward? What is going on for them? That's the question. And so I think it's worth it to spend some time with that person if they're willing to do that. I might just do a 1 day intensive with that couple
Mm-hmm.
and find out, can we do this? Like, is this gonna, I need to get a little deeper with you than just a therapy session. Sometimes things can come out that you would be very surprised about.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Fear of failure, fear of judgment,
Yeah.
fear of
And
change.
that's
Mhm.
a lot of things. A lot of people who are, especially high achieving, successful people, don't like to say, I mean, they don't think they have fear of anything, right?
Right.
That's not me. And somebody else could be afraid of, I'm not afraid of that. That whole word um, gives them
That's a good point.
anxiety.
Yeah, it's a very good point because a lot of my clients are from, the tech industry, and they are high achieving people making more money than I ever will see in my life. And so I respect their desire not to be vulnerable in the world.
Hmm.
It also, I think part of the program is learning that you can and have to be vulnerable in your important relationship. This is where the only way through is to be vulnerable. The only way forward.
Why?
Because if you're not being vulnerable, you're acting out of a lot of ineffective behaviors that are just defense mechanisms for that vulnerability.
Interesting.
Yeah, like denial and resistance and judgment, criticism, yelling, blaming. All of those are defense mechanisms against some vulnerable feeling.
Interesting. So what makes though, do you think the intensive more effective than, go to therapy every week, go to marriage counseling every week?
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, Karen, I think it's because we get an uninterrupted 2 days of first laying the groundwork, me reading, them doing the work, me putting it together for them, and then we're together and we're going straight from like the learning curve is not as steep because I've got them in my, attention. I've got their attention for all these hours. And then doing the practicing and helping me guide them through that in the eye to eye is just invaluable and there's no interruptions. So I do the eye to eye with some of my couples who are just coming in weekly for therapy, and
Hmm.
it's never ever as deep that we can go as it is in an intensive.
Yeah,
We
because you
just
just
don't
don't
have
have the
the time.
time.
We just don't have the time. And I don't want to open something up and then say, "Oh, we're done." Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So it's incredible what that momentum can do. And then after the intensive, we meet again 3 weeks later. That's a part of the cost of the intensive for 90 minutes. And I check in on how they're doing. I have them do another eye to eye with me, and I see the eye to eye is one of these things where it's a diagnostic exercise where I can see where they're getting stuck. And so I can sort of assess how effective was the intensive for you. And what do we need to do now? Maybe we don't need weekly therapy or even bi-weekly, but we might need to really keep practicing and coming in monthly or, getting
Interesting.
on Zoom. Yeah. And so a lot of times they don't need weekly therapy sessions after the intensive.
What's interesting to me about this whole process, though, is when you say 2 day intensive, I get the view of, okay, you walk in, you spend 2 days, you're done. But it sounds like there's really a lot more to it that you've got to do. There's a lot of pre-work that you do. So people are thinking about a lot of things in their relationship before they get to the intensive. Then there's the intensive, then there's the follow-up. And so it sounds like it really, the opportunity to go deep, I can see it. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's great. And thanks for saying that. They also get a binder, it's like this thick, to take with them that has everything we've worked on and talked about, even the psychoeducation about the brain, everything we've talked about. There's a goals section, a couple's goals section, and it's all really put together in a way. I mean, I do some crafting of things differently depending on the couple, and it can be put together in a way where it builds on itself. And then when they take that binder home, they've got something tangible to refer to and to keep working with.
Have you ever had couples who, because I know you are certified in discernment counseling as well, and just let's take a little aside for the listeners who might not know what that is. Can you explain what discernment counseling is?
Yeah, discernment counseling is a model that was developed for couples that are called mixed agenda. So it's the couple that comes into therapy and one of them really wants to work on the marriage and the other one is saying, I don't think that I'm in this anymore. I think I don't think this is going to help. I'm really not sure I want it. And so Bill Doherty, a psychologist at the University of Minnesota, developed this model that actually meets both of those people where they're at. And so there's no pretending that you're both here to work on the relationship. It's all out on the table. You're considering divorce or ending the marriage. You're dying to keep it together. And we spend only up to 5 sessions. It's very structured. A lot of one-on-one time with each of them, helping them understand more about how they got here and what their contributions were to the problems in their marriage, and then making a decision. Do they want to, path one, just leave things as they are, defer the decision, or path two, a decision to move towards divorce, formalize the separation? Or are they able to see with a deeper insight from these sessions what they might be working on, what they might even want to be working on for themselves? In the context of couples therapy, for a period of 6 months, taking all talk of leaving off the table, and then reevaluate in 6 months to see if it's a more viable, sustainable, and satisfying relationship.
That makes so much sense. And I've been a big supporter of discernment therapy from the beginning, because it makes so much sense. But have you ever had a couple who will come for an intensive, they say they want to put the marriage back together, they try, and they get to the point where either they're ready for discernment counseling now because somebody's leaning out, or somebody just says, I can't do this, I'm done.
That hasn't happened to me, but I do know it has happened to some of my colleagues. Um, I have not been doing intensives for a long time. Like the person who developed this, Lori Weisman, who's down in Palm Desert, I know she's had that experience with people. What I've had more of is doing discernment counseling and then having people go to an intensive with me.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of the weekly, because we kind of kickstart it, kind
Yeah.
of get them kickstarted if that's what they both want. They have to both choose it, you know. Um, but sure, I'm sure that that could happen. Anything's possible, that
But it doesn't sound what I love about what you're saying, and you're being very careful and judicious about how you say this, but it certainly doesn't sound like it happens a lot.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No,
And
because
so
of the
many people,
screening, because
yeah.
there's a lot of screening, all that pre-work,
Okay.
and I have phone calls with the couple, a Zoom,
Hmm.
about an hour long before I even agree to, do this with them. So that is something that I think is really important for the clinician to screen for and be clear about what are we doing here. Sometimes people are trying to make a decision. Maybe they are kind of on the brink. If they are, I'll try to do discernment with them first.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But the hard thing is too, because a lot of times what I've found is people don't really know what they want, right? They think they want one thing, but
Yeah.
when you start to dig down, it's something totally different.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah. And you and I know that from the divorce world is like people come in saying, we want this kind of relationship or divorce. And then, when the rubber meets the road, we find out when people are squeezed, what's inside comes out. And so, yeah, I think that it's good to spend some time with people before and ask the right questions and get an idea of their history and see patterns that may be there.
I love that. And I like the idea that you screen people before they get into the intensive. I would assume that from time to time people come to you and they don't get past that screening, that you do your screening and you either say, okay, we have to do discernment first, or I don't think the intensive is for you. Does that happen?
That has happened twice in the last month.
Oh my.
Doing discernment with one of those couples right now, and I'm doing separation counseling with another one. And because putting someone in the intensive, it is designed for really working on and with an open mind and hopefully open heart eventually, if it's not already. But when someone really has gotten to that point of being out and really knows it, I want to respect that too.
Yeah. I like to tell my clients this is my totally unscientific description, but there's a point of no return.
There
There
is a
is,
point.
yeah, there's a point where you cross that line and you can't go back.
Yeah. And I've been there. So I know what that's like. And
Hmm.
I do want to respect that. The worst thing I could do for somebody is try to get them to not be where they're at. Try and talk them out of whatever place they are. Discernment is about having them consider other things, not change their mind, but just let's look at it from all sides. And then you decide.
I love that. And that, again, that's one of the reasons why I like discernment as a model for couples.
Mhm.
Because until you've looked at things from different angles, until you have full information from a variety of perspectives, you can't really make a fully informed decision.
That's right. Yeah.
And so this helps people do that. I absolutely love that. So another question, if people are interested in learning more about this intensive weekend with you, where's the best place for them to find you and to learn about this?
Yeah. I can be my website is cerneycoaching.com, and I have a contact me on there. I've got a whole page about the intensives, and I'm definitely open to answering any questions. So don't hesitate to reach out.
I love this. And thank you so much for everything that you've shared. This has been really enlightening on a lot of levels. And I love that it's available. It's an option for people. It's a choice because so many times couples get things aren't going well. They've been going downhill for a long time and they think they don't have any choices, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good to explore as much as you can before you come to a final decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching and listening, we are going to link to all Anne's things in the show notes. So you'll be able to find her really, really easily and check out the intensive weekend if that seems like it's something that might work for you or might be good for you and your spouse. So again, Anne, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone watching or listening. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you again next time. And if you liked the episode, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.